first, right?
Yeah!
No one ever online has ever thought about this.
Oh, hey, you, Hunter. You stink. Oh!
Like I smell bad or what?
Yeah, you're stinky. You metalheads you're the stinkiest fandoms. Oh!
Winslow, I'm just trying to pick an album to listen to, man. Why are you being such a dick?
Oh, yeah, it's awful, please.
I mean, I can't smell that bad, man. I mean, hey, imagine if I was a Smash Bros. Player. Imagine how stinky that would be.
Oh, true, they are pretty stinky.
Yeah.
What about World of Warcraft players?
World of Warcraft is pretty bad, too. Or furries? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, Winslow.
Oh,
You're making me think. What exactly is the smelliest fandom? Has anyone ever actually discussed this subject? We have to be the first, right?
yeah.
No one ever online has ever thought about this, ever.
No, never.
And we're the first.
Yeah.
So, I know what we're gonna do today. We're gonna find out who exactly is the smelliest fandom. Let's go!
Take a shower while you're at it, you stinky fuck. Oh, it smells so much better now that that fat fuck's gone.
Hey, I hear you, Winslow.
Oh! Oh! You stinky fat fuck! Oh, it's so much nicer in here. I can finally get some rest. Me, 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 me.
All right, welcome back to the Papa Meat channel. How you doing? How you doing? Come on in and sit on down because today we're talking about something I think is extremely important. What exactly is the smelliest fandom? Now, I want to go on record here because we have a couple fandoms that have gotten mad at me before on the list, okay? I just want to put that out there. This is not a direct insult of the content itself. It's just my own personal experiences and what my own assumptions of what a lot of these things smell like. So this is very opinion-based. So I don't want people getting fucking hard feelings about it, but at the same time, be honest with yourself. I'm going to be honest with myself as well. And I think I'm going to pull through. I think I'm going to be a perfect representative to find out what exactly is the smelliest fandom. And the list goes as follows.
Anime, Marvel, World of Warcraft, Smash Bros, Call of Duty, Fortnite, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Ronin, furries, Costco, Walmart, Steven Universe, Has-Been Hotel, Swifties, Metalheads.
This is, I'm not saying that this has every fandom imaginable that might be smelly, but I thought that this was a good collection of fandoms to talk about here because I feel like I've experienced at least a little bit with some of these fandoms. And also I think that they're it captures a good wide net of people. So hopefully you all feel maybe represented or maybe you're learning a little something new today. So first round, let's fucking go. Anime versus Marvel. This is a fucking hard one to start with, dude. Anime, on one hand, it's kind of polarizing because I've seen a lot of people do One Piece cosplay. I went to, Nick by the camera. I've been to enough conventions or game shows to see people dressed up in crazy outfits, but it's not necessarily the looks, but it's just the smell. There's just a particular smell that some people have that is... it's sweat, I guess, essentially, but I'm trying to think if I really had to compare. The only thing really here is Marvel fans is I have one very particular memory of I went and saw Infinity War at a theater in Utah when it came out, and a guy was in front of me when we were like getting our tickets, and the guy reached down into the back of his pants, scratched his ass, and then brought it up and was like, and smelt it in front of me, and I almost threw up. That was unbelievable. And also when we saw Doctor Strange, there was the people dressed up as Doctor Strange, and in the bathroom, it was like the worst piss smell. But does that count? Does it count if what's leaving their body, like piss? Well, sweat. I also remember one time I was at a Barnes & Noble in the anime section, picking up a little Hellsing back in the day, and this guy had copies of Bleach that he was taking off the counter, and he like coughed a bunch, and I don't know if he like shit himself during that. I didn't hear a fart or anything, but he was like, "Oh!" oh, oh, ah, ah, like that kind of cough. And then immediately I just smelled like this vomit, like this vomity kind of acidic thing. And then just like an underlaying layer of shit as well. And I know that stuck with me. And that was like one of the main reasons I never picked up bleach when I was younger. I was like, I don't want to be gross like that guy. It might have been his breath. I don't know. I mean, it was like, ugh! What's interesting too is I would say both Marvel and anime fans are built similar. Like you could put a Captain America shirt on somebody and you could also put like a One Piece shirt on somebody and you would probably never know the difference. Both all ranging in age. I'm gonna have, just off my own personal preferences, I gotta give it to like Marvel or comic fans, honestly. Just the amount of shit I've seen in theaters and like everything else. Just yeah, comic book fans are just like, I don't know, man. I remember I worked in Utah and there's this guy that I used to work with. I'm not even exaggerating. During the Marvel Infinity War era, he took off like 2 weeks of work so he could go see it like every day. I'm not even joking. Like he made his kids go to school and everything. This is probably like a 38-year-old guy every day. And he would like post on his social media and he was like crying. He was like a big smoker too. I think about that a lot. Of like, I associate like shitty smell, like shit smell, like a fart, and like cigarette smoke a lot with Marvel comic fans now because of that. So I don't know. Yeah. Next up, World of Warcraft versus Smash Bros. These are some heavy hitters right off the fucking bat, huh? I want to get off the way and say Smash Bro players I know have a tendency to smell. And I know that people say, well, at tournaments they would say, hey, be sure you take a shower and put on deodorant. There's a lot of people that do that. I remember at Magic tournaments I went to, Magic the Gathering tournaments or card tournaments, they would have that shit on the door. You know what I mean? I know Smash Bros gets a lot of hate. I made that Smash Maggot cartoon back in the day, which I will say, love that character, love that creature. But the more I think about too, WoW back in the day, WoW makes me think of like Mountain Dew, sugary food, and it makes me think of like weed, my buddy hitting a pipe and just getting fucking absolutely high while he plays World of Warcraft for like an uninterrupted 14 hours before his body just physically collapses below him. Smash Bros players, I imagine like usually some kind of zip up anime jacket and like greasy hair that's like really flat and low down to the side of their head. Biggest thing I'm thinking about World of Warcraft 2 though is the neat nest aspect. These people are sitting and festering at their desk for a long, long time. I'm imagining like just trash everywhere, moldy food.
Grinding away.
Grinding, piss buckets, piss bottles. Why are piss bottles so common?
Gotta stop gaming.
Yeah, I'm like, I've played World of Warcraft. I mean, you're just like, get up and go take a piss when you're like just doing a random fucking quest. It's not that big of a deal. Smash Bros players though too, from some of the personal stuff I've seen, I feel like, even I worked at a game store when I was in college. And some of the Smash Bros players that came in, man, they had the kind of like a diaper butt feel. Cargo shorts and like a diaper butt. It always makes me think that they're like, their pants were always full of shit. Also, Smash Bros players, here's another fucking thing at that store. Those dudes openly fart. That was like the grossest thing. Like just looking at like a GameCube section, they're like grabbing stuff off the shelf and it was just like, or like that. I'm like, are you not embarrassed? It's hard again. I feel like deep down you know World of Warcraft has to be the smellier option. Just as somebody that is calcifying. They're like a crustacean on the side of a boat. Like they are just sitting in that chair all day and they don't move. And you know what's crazy too is that they are contained to their own stink. Yeah, the Smash Bros players go out and stuff, but usually they leave also. If you went into like a neat nest den, you're in a cave. Like you're in it to be in it for the long haul. I gotta go WoW. That was a heavy hitter round, but to think Smash Bros players got knocked off first round is pretty crazy to me. Next up, we have Call of Duty and Fortnite. Well, this is when we get into different territories. If we always did people that were smelling in just different, like, shitty, poopy ways, I don't think the tournament would be that diverse. So I wanted to throw Call of Duty and Fortnite in here because here's the thing about Call of Duty and Fortnite. This is every Call of Duty streamer I see. Some kind of athletic tee. They definitely just talked about how they got done working out. The cap is either to the side or they have some kind of product in their hair to look good because you know they're getting bitches later. They eat on stream, usually something healthy to show how they are. But this is what I picture when I think of Call of Duty. I picture a guy who's just like, it's gonna be a short stream today because I gotta go and watch the Dallas Cowboys play. and go finger fuck some chicks outside of a Hooters and like just Axe body spray. I imagine Axe body spray is criminal in Call of Duty scenes. Axe, or what was that other one? Tag? Remember Tag body spray? I just imagine various amounts of like things they probably think smell good on somebody. And here's the thing, I'm gonna be passing a lot of judgment on this deal. If you ever meet me in person, you're like, can I get a picture? You better expect me to smell terrible. I smell like a baby diaper the majority of the time. I smell like sweat. I don't even smoke, but I imagine I smell a little bit like a smoker. I don't know how that happens, but that's what I picture of myself. So I'm passing judgment, but I'm just trying to level the playing field here and saying that like, sometimes I think when people try to smell too good, you smell like a big artificial queef cloud, and that doesn't feel good to me. And also the idea that you probably smell like a propane grill because you're like, we gotta cook some dogs before the big game. Don't even get the boys over here. We're gonna crush some White Claws and cook some dogs before the big Cowboys game. That's what it feels like to me. They're like saying that, they're just like, or because they're so wealthy, they have a really, really expensive cologne, but put way too much on. It's Guilty by Gucci. And just like, you hear the little like hit markers from Call of Duty 2. Oh yeah, that smells good. I graduated from Idaho University. State school kind of guy. Whatever, doesn't matter. Fortnite, on the other hand, I think is something similar because it's the same kind of demographic, except it just feels a little more juvenile. Not that Call of Duty guys are mature, but in Call of Duty, they're like,
nobody cares, it's not a feat.
I'm gonna go finger fuck your mom because you're a stupid bitch. Is what I expect. At Fortnite, they're like, don't freaking talk to me like that. It's that kind of vibe. They're the same kind of guy, except it's just watered. It's like a PG version of that stuff. Yeah, this girl's really pretty and I'd like to kiss her.
Fortnite, how do you say that?
That's what I don't know if Fortnite players say. I'm just saying that's what I imagine. When I think of Fortnite, I imagine it's just like, yeah, I get the boys together. We don't watch football necessarily, but we did watch our favorite anime last night. And my girlfriend made me tons of chicken nuggies. That's what I picture. Like a beautiful woman. He's like a millionaire, little fucking like greasy guy who's just like,
Yo, Pug and chat, dude. Seriously, did you guys see that sick skill shot I had?
and this like fucking beautiful woman comes walking in. She's like, there you go.
He's like, my babe bringing me baby carrots and ranch for my snack.
Click whatever. They're like, I'm building. Which makes me think that sometimes, I don't know, baby powder. When you got a rash in between your like thighs or your taint, you like smoke out your underwear with that baby powder. It puts up. I feel like it smells like that. Also, look at that guy. Who's that guy that I saw? Nick A30. He kind of looks like a car dealer. And every time I go to a car dealer, they always smell like peppermint. I don't know if it's because of the hard candies at their desk, but every time I've ever gone to a car and they're like, hey, I want to put you in this car, they always smell like peppermints. I don't know why. So I'm trying to think like baby powder mixed with peppermints. That's a big leap. All right. I'm trying to formulate this in my own head. I don't know why. Also, too, the baby thing makes me think that like Fortnite players would like just piss themselves.
Yeah, you can use the bottle.
Yeah, they don't use the bottle. They're just like, they have like adult diapers and they're like piss in their own diapers.
And their beautiful girlfriend changes them on
Yeah,
screen.
and their beautiful girlfriend lays them down on their back and like lifts up their legs and they're like, she's like, okay, stop it. And they take off the big piss stain. I'm just gonna say Fortnite. I'm running too much with Fortnite and it's becoming, and you know what? That's unfair. I want to say that right now, that that's unfair and that's a bias, but that's just where we're at, dude. Pokemon versus MTG, dude, this isn't even a fucking... I put Pokemon up here because it's really cool to open Pokemon cards, or at least it used to be. The horror stories. I had, actually, you know what? One of my friends, I have a friend who is a professional Magic the Gathering player, literally, goes to qualifiers and stuff. I'm just gonna call him and I'll ask him, because he plays a lot of the different trading card games and stuff, and I'd be curious to hear what he says.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey man, are you busy?
Oh, no, what's up?
Hey, I had a quick question. Do you think Magic the Gathering players or Pokemon players, which one do you think smells worse?
Smells worse?
Yeah.
Probably Magic the Gathering by, like, a good amount.
What?
Because usually, like, most Magic players are men and they're, like, 12 to older than us, and they don't take very good care of themselves, whereas Pokemon players, a lot more of the time, is like kids.
Oh, I see. Okay. I mean, you play Magic. Is that a testimony to you? Do you think you smell bad?
Oh, constantly.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I notice you guys whenever I'm there, you're just like, good God. Get down.
Okay, all right. Okay. Thank you, Nick.
What I will say, though, is Yu-Gi-Oh! Players are on a different fucking planet.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You can
Okay.
smell something.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Nick.
No problem. Bye.
Right. There you have it. I will say I don't know what it is about card stores. Card stores are always next to Taiwanese restaurants. I don't know what kind of business strategy that is, that in every strip mall there has to be a Taiwanese or some kind of fried chicken sandwich place. But people bring in that food in styrofoam containers and it's like all sweaty. You know when you open it and there's just like, it looks like someone just like fucking brought it in from outside, like the rain. You know what I mean? You bring that in, it just smells like spices and shit in there. The amount of times too, dude, I've gone to a Magic the Gathering tournament, oh my God. And people like will let their farts rip on those like plastic chairs and it sounds like a fucking 200 count bobcat thing going off. And then they, what they do afterward, they do they do that. And they're like, well, there goes Billy again. Billy is always doing that. And it's like this thick mildew haze. This doesn't even seem fair. Man, it's just on a different fucking level. Also, too, dude, Pokemon players aren't grinding Commander. Pokemon players aren't fucking busting packs open for draft, having to follow standard routines, modern routines, legacy routines. They're not trying to figure out how the fuck you're supposed to beat amulet type combos, right? What happens in Pokemon? Who fucking knows? Garbage. We're moving on.
I forfeited a game in Magic because the guy who was playing was farting constantly and I couldn't stand the smell.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
When was this?
I think like 2nd grade. I was playing with my uncle at a college and like, well, the worst part was my brother was talking to my opponent. So like when it was his turn, he was like just sitting there talking and just, letting it rip. And then I was like, okay, I just quit.
I would too. There's no way. If a guy was like, okay, play Island on tap, and just like,
I'm pretty sure he shit his pants.
I think you should, like, turn to Tormagoyev, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and, I believe it's a 3-4 right now. Let me count my graveyard. Yeah, he's a 3-4. Okay, there we go.
Well, the funny thing is, like, afterwards I told my uncle, he's like, oh, you're done soon. I was like, yeah, I quit. And then he's like, all right, I forfeit. And he's like, what? Are you serious? He's like, why do I even take you if you're not even gonna play?
Good fucking point, dude. That's a good point. You know what you should have done? You should have farted back at the guy and see if you couldn't have pushed your limits there, dude. Next up, we have bronies and furries. It's kind of interesting. These are both two people who kind of cosplay. Now, furries are different because those motherfuckers are in a sweat, like a spa, basically inside those suits. I mean, I can't even imagine. I've seen some people at some like cons where they take off their furry helmet and they're just like, like drenched in sweat. And just, just the moisture level. Bronies, I'm trying to think about. Every time I see videos of bronies on the internet, you know what's weird is they always meet up at like Denny's, like a restaurant, and they sing, which doesn't really have anything to do with their smell, but it's just you're painting a picture, right? If I was at like a Denny's 9:30 and I just saw like a group of people, a cavalier of people come in, sit down, and start singing brony songs, I'm really trying to think about what I would smell. Because also, here's another thing too. When people sweat, it's a byproduct also. The smell is a byproduct of what you're eating. And I don't think bronies, at least from what I know, from my own prejudice, bronies don't eat the best diet. I would imagine a lot of greasy foods, a lot of sugar. So I imagine they're sweating, they're walking around a lot in their packs of friends. There's probably one alpha in the group who does this thing. Also, you know what I also think of too is I think of a lot of hair dye, a lot of different kind of chemical smells, like a cheap salon almost mixed in with like hash browns and just like grease, that kind of smell. These are really unfair because I'm painting a picture in my head. I'm trying to justify these things, but inevitably I'm trying to be like, is it worse than a person who is trapped inside an insulated suit walking around? Because then also with the furry thing, you have to think, if you can kind of smell a furry from outside their suit, if they took that off, that would be like...
Some wear diapers, too.
Yeah, and some people wear diapers just because they don't want to take off the suits, so they just shit and piss in their furry suits. I'm trying to think, do you think there's probably some bronies who wear diapers?
Fluttershy diapers.
When I think of brony, I don't really think of like, oh, they smell. I just think of like, if anything, I think that they're probably well groomed because they're like combing out those fucking pony hairs. They're probably combing themselves out. They're probably fucking well groomed. Nice nails. I mean, all kinds of shit. I gotta give it to furries, I feel like. It feels obvious to me, like looking back on it. This is a good one. Costco versus Walmart shoppers. Walmart is obviously the lower income crazy shit, but also, dude, I've seen some crazy fucking Costco shoppers. Especially recently, there's like that father-son duo, which I don't think that they smell, but it gives me off I'm trying to think of the odors of that too. Like a lot of Irish Spring body wash. Because here's the thing, Walmart, I think people are going there with like tobacco stained shirts, shit-filled pants, greasy palms and armpits, right? So it's like the human body. Costco feels like they are covered in everything that Costco sells. Hot dogs, shake and bake. What the fuck is chicken bake?
It's what that guy was eating. The little kid was eating. I'm a Costco guy. I always eat a chicken bake.
I'm a Costco guy. I always use it. Or yeah, so a hot dog, a fucking chicken bake, whatever the fuck that is. And then wholesale everything. Wholesale rotisserie chicken. I'm saying that these people, they smell however when they go in, but when they go out, they smell like product. You walk through a certain aisle, you might smell like dog food because it's wholesale dog food. People fucking ripping the bags open from the deals. Get fucking pedigree. And they rip it open. Kirkland dog food. And they get covered in fucking like dog food kibble dust or something like that. So then they just smell like boiled hot dogs, processed chicken shit from the food court, the Irish Spring body wash that they bought 12 bottles of this morning, and they just lather it too because they're just like, we have so much of it, we have to fucking lather ourselves up. You know what I mean? Like as much as like a whole bottle. Every time I shower, they use a whole thing of Irish Springs. Versus Walmart, I feel like it's like we're gonna be lucky if we hit the shampoo aisle. We're gonna be lucky, dude. Those motherfuckers are buying single bottles of Yoo-Hoo. I guess that's an interesting thought experiment, though. Would I rather be around someone? I have to put myself in a situation where if we were in a neutral zone where it wasn't their specified store and you were standing next to the people at a Target and they're both like out of their element, they're like looking around like a scared deer. And I walked past the Walmart person, I walked past the Costco person, but they're in their full stink mode. You have to make it fair.
Well, you could tell the Costco guy. Be like, oh, that's a Costco man.
Oh, dude. Do we have eyes? We would be able to see which one's who. Because when I think of Walmart, I think of like just a big old woman. A big old woman with like pajama pants on and Homer Simpson slippers where it's like the foot goes in the mouth. Life has fucking beat her down and she has her hands on the handlebar of that fucking Walmart cart and she's, I mean, just like almost like Sisyphus pushing the fucking boulder up the hill. She's just like, gotta feed the kids again and make sure Mark's fed tomorrow before he gets up at 5 in the morning for his construction job. She's just fucking trudging through that goddamn Walmart like it's, you know, how many times? I mean, it's like literally, it's a Greek tragedy is what Walmart shoppers are to me. It's like Prometheus being tortured every day, their liver gets eaten out by a fucking vulture. Costco is oddly, I have more sympathy for the Walmart shopper. Costco to me is the stench is from their own greed, from their own consumption. And to me, I don't know why, but that my nose is scaling that way. I don't like the Costco person. I like the Walmart person more, but the Walmart person definitely smells worse. I just want to say that right now, dude, if you have a Costco membership, I don't fucking trust you, dude. That goes with Sam's Club too, though. You can't be in one of these things where it's like buying wholesale. Fuck that. Am I wrong? Okay, dude. Next up, Steven Universe versus Has-Been Hotel fans. Look at that, dude. How proud are we to have a YouTube property bought by fucking Amazon Prime up here, facing up against a network television TV show. I don't think I've ever been around a bunch of Has-Been. Like, I mean, Has-Been Hotel is obviously widely successful. I've only ever seen like tweet interactions with them. Versus when I worked in LA, I knew of a lot of people. I went to a lot of drink and draw things in LA when I worked in the animation industry, and those motherfuckers had like the Steven Universe shirt on and stuff. Always smelled like kimchi and fucking Cheetos. That was like a big thing. Never alcohol. What fucked me up too, and this is me just being biased, is I try to go to these drink and draws and have like a little buzz. Why not, dude? Have a fucking whiskey and Coke, hang out, just we're drawing, hanging out, whatever. These motherfuckers would bring like juice. They bring juice and they bring their own snacks. It's like it's a bar. Like it's already there. And they'd be showing up with like doggy bags of shit. And they always smelled like Korean barbecue, fucking kimchi, Cheetos. Some kind of Asian cuisine usually is what I always smelled. I don't know why. Has-Been Hotel, I mean, what would you say? What does a Has-Been Hotel fan smell like? I don't really think I've ever been like, you know, is a Has-Been Hotel, are they smelly? The only thing I could think is like, oh, you're smelly is because maybe you're chronically online. Yeah. Maybe, so you kind of get the same World of Warcraft thing where it's like, oh, you live in your own bubble and you have someone there to be like, hey, those Fruit of the Loom boxers you're wearing, you shit your pants 4 times and you haven't changed it. And it's like you just become accustomed to your own smell. I mean, I'm leaning towards Steven Universe, but it's just because of that fucking kimchi, man. Kimchi is fucking brutal. Like, freshly cooked kimchi. Oh, my God. I'm just gonna go Steven Universe. Out of ignorance, I feel like I just need to... I'd go Steven Universe. I think that's a fair one, too. I don't think that, you know... Swifties versus metalheads. I thought this one was particularly interesting because I have a lot of obvious interest in metal. As you know on this channel, I wear metal shirts all the time. And let me tell you, every metal show consists of, it smells like weed, sweat, and it smells like somebody in the midst of while they were moshing or headbanging definitely shit their pants. So it's kind of like a hazy sewage kind of smell is what I would say if you had to generalize it. Swifties I thought was kind of interesting because you do your best to get in your Sunday's best to look as good as you possibly can. But to me, the Swiftie thing goes into almost like the Call of Duty thing where it's like you do too much. Like when I think of Swiftie, I think of when the girls like, it smells like green apple. And, like, and they spray it and like glitter. Just fucking, it smells like green apple and fucking hairspray and like just chemicals. So I'm thinking like just a large amount of chemicals and stuff. It's like whenever
Picture
you like
of a
walk
horse's
by
asshole,
somebody.
nice.
I walked by this girl one time and you could tell she had like a bunch of makeup on, her hair was dead, but it felt so like my teeth, like it's almost like, you know when it's like you almost taste like nickel in your mouth, or like if you ever had like blood in your mouth, you taste that. I like walked by and I was like, and I did that, and I could have swore because of the chemicals, I like tasted nickel in my mouth, and I was just like repulsed, like whatever. And I don't know if I've necessarily had that thing. Like I've definitely walked into a metal show and been like, this smells terrible. But it was like, what do I expect? I think that's maybe why.
You also gotta think Swifties are gonna be in a big group, all different smells.
Well, what I mean is like every metalhead will probably smell the same, so it's a big collective smell. Every Swiftie is going to maybe have similar smells, but it's going to be different chemicals and different concoctions. It's like a fucking alchemist. It's like an alchemist's like rave party gone wrong or something like that. Also, too, I wonder if all the chemicals affect.
Why
their
did
sweat.
you not
Like, if they were
grab the
sitting there,
ledge?
like,
What the
they're in a
fuck
big
was
concert,
that?
right? They're in a stadium, 100,000 people. It gets hot. If they start sweating, the makeup that's like rubbing off or whatever, what does that smell like? I would say they're all generally healthy. I would say healthy eaters, so it's probably maybe not that bad. Well, I guess to make it fair though, if it was 100,000 metalheads, that'd be terrible too.
More overweight than Swiftie?
Are metalheads more overweight than Swiftie fans? Yeah. I'm definitely gonna say the metalhead barometer of people are probably a little more out of shape than Swifties, I would imagine. I mean, I gotta give it to metalheads. I love you metalheads, but you fucking smell. What am I supposed to say? Round 2, here we go. All right, well, it's gonna get harder now. I'm curious. I will say, it seems like every person that won the first round, I had some kind of personal relationship with, or had some kind of experience with. So I'm curious to see where it goes on from here. Starting up first, Marvel fans and comic book fans versus World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is going to be a hard one to beat, just because you have to also imagine in this video, we are talking about the extreme of the fans. It isn't, I guess to an extent, we talk about, usually it boils down to the extreme, and you can generalize people, but obviously generalized people are going to have interest
Forgot
in
the
something,
fucking
do whatever.
button,
I'm
shit.
talking about the extreme people who take it to the extreme, and a Marvel fan that takes it to the extreme, I would imagine, is probably a 36 to 43-year-old guy.
And they could make you swim faster.
Has all the Funko Pops, big boy, you know, he's a big guy.
Where's the one, same Marvel
No,
shirt?
hooks
Wears
under
the same
here.
Captain America shirt that's maybe like a size just a little too small. A pair of basketball shorts. Yeah, gym shorts.
Infinity
Nope.
Gauntlet.
Has an Infinity Gauntlet, and he's wearing Nike Air Monarchs, which I will say is a very comfortable shoe, so I see why he
Man.
does that. I'm really trying to be unbiased here too because of the guy who scratched his ass and smelt it in front of me, because that tore me up so bad. Because realistically, every person that I've ever met, and this is going to be rude, every person that I've ever met that plays World of Warcraft has a distinct smell to them. Even if they're kind of like in shape, motherfuckers just still smell weird. It's like mold, like musty mold or something like that. I don't know, you know what's the fucked up thing? I don't think World of Warcraft people would even like disagree. I think they'd just be like, yeah, pretty much. Marvel people still, if I had to give Marvel any credit, I think that Marvel people still lean to where it's just like, yeah, I like comic books, and it's like very casual. It's like whenever you go to the gym, I'm one of the biggest
almost
fucking
forgot the
people
button
in my
again. I
life
keep
is whenever you
pressing
go to the
circle.
gym, and it's the training to go Super Saiyan, and it's like, I love anime, and it's just like this fucking ripped guy, and you're like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Not that anime people can't be fucking jacked or whatever, but it's just one of those things where I'm like, you're not in this shit like the rest of us. You know what I mean? You have an escape. You love your life. You're handsome, whatever. We get it. I'm trying to think about those people who are just like, I watch Marvel movies because it is the only way out. And I think that the people that have World of Warcraft, I think those motherfuckers are fighting a little harder. So I'm gonna go World of Warcraft. Next up is Fortnite versus MTG. This isn't even fair again. Magic the Gathering, dude. I don't even have anything to say. Magic the Gathering, 100%. That's not even a fair one. Fortnite just got put down like a fucking 12-year-old golden retriever. Sorry, dude. Furries versus Walmart shoppers. That is fucking. You know what's fucked up about this imagery too is that you have the furry pictures of it, and then the other image is just literally black text that says Walmart. It's creating a new level of mysticism that's fucking me up here. God, this is a hard one. People wear diapers in their furry suit and they're sweating profusely. And also they vape in them and shit. The inside of that furry suit would smell so bad, but goddamn if that Walmart shopper doesn't just, I mean, brutal. It is hard to go into Walmart and like Every time I go into Walmart, it's almost like a it confirms evolution to me every time. Where I'm like, I see some guy in there, I mean, just doing the most archaic shit, and you're just like, there's no way we were created from something of a higher power. We are monkey. We are not that far off from being a fucking monkey, dude. Sorry, but it makes me fucking depressed when I go into Walmart. I'm just like this. I lose faith in God every time I go in there. But does that? I don't think that correlates with the smell. I think you gotta go furry. I think you do, because it's a literal Venus flytrap. It's like an Iron Maiden of stink, of stench, and there is no escaping that moisture, dude. It's gotta be moldy as fuck in there, like musty. You know, whenever you like wash your clothes and they're still too wet, leave out too long, you're just like, oh goddamn, you have to rewash them again. That's what I bet that is. I don't even know how the fuck they wash those things. There's no way. Can you throw a furry suit in the washer?
You'd have to do dry cleaning.
You have to do dry cleaning? You better have a trusted fucking dry cleaner to go do that. Steven Universe versus Metalheads. I mean, the obvious answers feels like Metalheads to me, just because of the poop aspect. But now I'm trying to get down to the philosophy of smell. What is the essence of the smell? Is there a camaraderie in the smell that makes it more, like, not appealing, but makes it more like, oh, I could shrug that off? Because like I said before, with Steven Universe, you have the kimchi thing. You also kind of have the Chronic Online aspect. Maybe not as much anymore, but when it was up there. Steven Universe fans, I imagine, wash their clothes more than Metalheads. You do have crust punks and stuff. That isn't necessarily a metalhead. That's punk. There's a difference. It's hard, man. I'm trying to think. Metalheads I wouldn't describe as like chronically online. It's just like a weekend warrior.
This guy's gunning after me.
Where like, yeah, I'm wearing my shit and I want to go and I want to rage. So that's why you smell bad. Versus Steven Universe, those kind of vibes. I wonder if that's just like that's like a lifestyle.
What the
Also,
fuck?
There's probably some more cosplaying aspects.
Jesus.
Of Steven Universe to where you're probably in various things that cause more stank. I feel like I'm just hating on Steven Universe right now.
What the fuck kind of side
honestly
quest is
leaning
this?
towards Steven Universe, and I don't know why. My gut reaction says Steven Universe.
Now
Like,
you.
I just almost want to bark like Steven Universe wins. I want to say that, but I'm really trying to justify it. And also, here's the thing, dude. Nothing wrong with being smelly. Sometimes people smell. Who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? The thing about being smelly is you need to realize that like people probably just don't want to be around you because you're fucking smelly. That's not the end of the world, but it's just like, hey, there's other smelly people out there who probably won't give a fuck. I'm doing Steven Universe. I don't give a fuck. I'm putting it up there. I've met enough metalheads where I'm like, motherfucker smells good. Right into a show, I'm like, what the it smells like caramel. You know what I mean? Something weird like that where you're like, this motherfucker smells sweet.
Holy shit.
World of Warcraft versus Magic the Gathering is probably the hardest debate of the day. My God, we've listed all the events over and over again. Here's the different thing, though, that makes this round interesting is that World of Warcraft is all based in your house, right? It's your nest. It's like where you cultivate all of your stink. And very rarely, I would say, do you go out to the outside world. Like the diehards, like the actual grinders and stuff like that. You're gonna spend majority of your time in your room doing whatever. You order pizza, have it brought to you. You know, you very rarely do whatever. Magic the Gathering, you do have to go out into the world and then you toxify a space.
It's like your second nest.
It's your second nest, yeah. Or even if it's like you don't have your own nest, these card shops are your new nest. So in a way, Magic the Gathering, that stink travels farther. Versus the World of Warcraft, it's more combined. But if we had to just be like, what is a smellier person? World of Warcraft has, actually picturing a neat nest, that is an accumulation of stuff building in a toxic war zone kind of environment. Versus a Magic the Gathering guy could smell like shit, farts, whatever, be sweaty, and they go to a place, and at a time that can be a collective stink, but whenever they're gone, it gets cleaned out. So then it's like not terrible all the time, but the people are stinky. This is hard. It's the additional element too, because if it's all based around sweat, shit, and like burps and stuff, it's all pretty even across the board, but it's the extra elements. Like I think of like World of Warcraft, I think about like being down in a room and a guy's just like chain smoking weed and cigarettes, especially like inside cigarettes. Who are we? That shit's never coming out of the carpet, never coming out of like the fabric of anything on your desk or keyboard, anything. It's just embedded. Some screen that looks like it's filmed over because it's just like an accumulation of like pop cans have burst open and like whatever else. Magic the Gathering though too, it's just like a collected chaos. It almost makes it where it's just like they live a normal life, yet it's like a stinky skunks walking among us. You know what's fucked up too is you can like this is a weird thing too. You ever go up to a person and you're like, hey, do you play Magic the Gathering? They're like, oh yes. And then you start smelling it. It's like they disguise themselves until they reveal their hand, and that's whenever that stink goes out like a spore. Fuck. Do you think there's any merit to it being contained, or do you think that makes it worse?
I was gonna say, like, are you basing it individual? Because I think at a Magic tournament, there's gonna be a lot more smelly people that's making it.
Well, you could say the same thing about a World of Warcraft thing. BlizzCon. If you had a BlizzCon kind of thing, that would be just as worse, if not worse. Because then also that collected stink that's been marinating. Ooh, it's because the stink has been marinating, and then when they go out, it's way worse than like fresh batches. It's like aged wine versus like bare naked wine. $12 bottle versus like, this is the good shit that's been aging for whatever. It's gotta be World of Warcraft based off that. Just off the marination and then going out. And then furries versus Steven Universe. This feels like furries to me, I feel like just win this. Because in part of me, I don't know if this is ignorant of me to say, but I mean, I've been saying that this whole time, but I feel like there's a subsect of people who are probably Steven Universe fans who are also furries. So to me, I'm like, you might as well just give it to furries because it's kind of the same vibe. Which this is, honestly, this is kind of a telltale final here. The finals. All right. World of Warcraft versus furries. These are like legends that the legends speak for themselves kind of thing. I'm trying to think. God.
They're comparable too, because you can't wash the suit. You wear the suit, it's almost like your neat nest.
Exactly, it is comparable. They are both isolated in their own ways. World of Warcraft marinates themselves in their neat nest. Furries marinate themselves in the suit. I would go on a limb and say that the suits do not get washed that frequently. If I had to go on a big limb, and I know there's gonna be people who be like, I wash my suit every day, or something like that. I get that, I'm just saying as a whole, I bet you the suits do not get washed a lot, is what I would say. God gives his toughest angels the hardest battles, doesn't he? They're very comparable, though. World of Warcraft people maybe have an unhealthier lifestyle of, I imagine, a lot of World of Warcraft people I know smoke cigarettes, don't drink water, usually a lot of sugar, pop type stuff, vape, and smoke weed and shit. Like a lot of smoking, a lot of stuff that just like their teeth are usually fucked up. Once again, I'm paraphrasing. I'm just saying people I've met in my life. Versus furries, I've seen a lot of furries vape, whatever. I've seen a lot of furries get fucking wasted. I've gone to a convention and there's been like fucking just furries drunk off their ass because people drink in it and you can just put the mask over so people don't know they're kind of just like walking around whatever. So it's a different kind of unhealthy there. And the reason I'm bringing health up too is just because that correlates with smell. So I'm just trying to put out there. It's almost impressive too that the furries are isolated, but yet they're still walking among us. It's like you can get little glimpses of it, but as soon as that like head comes off, I bet it just reeks. Well, here's an experiment. If you had to put a person just got out of being in a fursuit for 10 hours at a con, and you had to put your head in the neck hole and like whiff. That made me gag a little bit thinking about that. That made me gag thinking about that a little bit. I'm trying to think of what would be comparable with the World of Warcraft thing.
Just go in their neat nest.
You got to deep whiff something though. Would it be like they get up off their gaming chair and you have to sniff the chair? That would be somewhat comparable. If you wanted to sniff the ass of the furry suit, you could do that too, but you'd have to put your head in there. But it would all be the same. I mean, like you sniffing that would be the same. I'm trying to think of what would be worse. Probably the furry suit. I tell you what though, there are some of these chairs can tell stories with the scent of them. Like if you smelled that chair, you'd be blasted with some kind of prophecy of like what this life has been like for this person. The furry suit is just this automated, it's like an automaton. It's its own living piece of skin that you're smelling.
It goes back to being mobile too. You can take that thing anywhere.
That's what I'm saying is it's a hazardous time bomb no matter where you go. But does that make it smellier? I think I have my answer. The winner of the smelliest fandom, I think, has to be furries. It's gotta be furries. The idea that it's because you move around and you are you're mobile with it makes it such a crazier concept to me too, that the stink is moving. It gives it much more lore, which I think is very fun. But I will say also, even the guys at Bad Dragon, it's like a pretty predominantly furry based company and they're all furries. Even one of the owners of it, I won't go on who says it, but even he jokes about how crazy the furry community can be and how weird or unhygienic it can be at times, which to me, if you're getting it right from the fucking source too, that's hard to compete against. Versus, yeah, I've seen a lot of like MMORPG kind of people like WoW and stuff. They're obviously very smelly, but at least it's contained in a weird way. Also, they're not moving around a lot, so you don't get that like gelatinous kind of like sweat that you get from being around and letting something like sweat continuously soaking into a piece of fabric and it just like a moldy kind of salty smell in the air. Oh God.
Also other bodily fluids.
and other bodily, you fucking coming in the suit, doing all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? It could even be like you fucking get cut in the suit, blood, or I don't know. Like I don't know how the blood's getting in there. But I'm just saying, like you get shit in there, your diaper could leak, and your shit could get in there. You get piss in your suit.
Come on the fur on the outside.
Someone's coming on your fur on the outside. No one wants that. You know what I mean? I think all in all, I think furry is a pretty good answer to this. I mean, I'm curious to hear what the comment Discord down below, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of different comments, I bet. But I feel very confident with the furry choice that we've made today. And I do think that if there's more fandoms to be had, we can do a second round and stuff. But for this batch, I think the furry feels like it's a good winner. And you know what? Here's the thing. If you're a furry, be proud of this. You're already taking such a leap by being in a giant animal suit. Wear your stink with pride. Don't bow. You haven't bowed down to anything else yet, so don't bow down to the fucking stink. Embrace the stink. And also, we have to give a nice round of applause to World of Warcraft, who is our runner-up here. It's a very nice deal. Everyone else here, just know that there is a level of stink in everybody, but furries are just the ones that probably smell the worst. Thank you so much, everybody watching. I look forward to reading the comments on this one, and I'll see you next time. Take care, guys.
I'm no meteorologist, but I'm still going to make a weather forecast for Twitch right now. I'm predicting a 100% chance of cloudy skies and rain, as the collective tears from all of the gooners on Twitch fall and crash upon their desk in unison, because Twitch just broke their hearts. They just announced the apocalypse, the doomsday, or rather, the Coomsday, I suppose. Friday, March 29th. Twitch is adjusting their policy that will now outlaw content that focuses on intimate body parts for a prolonged period of time. It will no longer be allowed. In no uncertain terms, they drew a line in the sand and said, this is our domain expansion. The absence of booby and butthole. I doubt there's a single soul on this planet that's surprised by this decision from Twitch because of the blossoming trend on the platform where creators were trying to push the envelope of sexual content as far as they possibly could. I mean, for goodness sakes, we had the colonoscopy cam meta, where streamers were setting up a camera aimed directly at their chocolate starfish and put the bare minimum amount of fabric required to hide the hole, but you could still see all of the anal folds and everything. I mean, the asshole was still winking at you through the fabric. And I can't even use the word fabric in good consciousness because it was barely fabric. It was like a sliver of toilet paper that just got stuck there and was hanging on for dear life because it wasn't censoring like anything. But anyway, as you can imagine, this was extremely popular, tons and tons of viewers, and this kind of kicked off this arms race, this like nuclear arms race of Coomer content. So a lot of other creators started to try and find creative ways to deliver sexual content on Twitch. I made a follow-up video where another streamer made a green screen ass stream where she would play a game and her ass was green screened, so the gameplay was only on her butt cheeks. And I'm not gonna lie, some of it was extremely creative, watching a lot of these women scramble to find loopholes to broadcast their poop holes on Twitch. I started to get inspired myself. I was theory crafting ways on how I could get involved, started considering buying a green dick sleeve so I could broadcast my Rainbow Six Siege gameplay on my erect penis. I was in the lab cooking. I was like a mad scientist, Cockenheimer. I was coming up with all kinds of interesting ideas, but ultimately didn't do anything with it. But since that last video I made on this subject, it's only continued to spiral more and more out of control, which has prompted Twitch's response here, which shuts down this entire branch of content. And if you've been paying attention on Twitch, some of the most popular streams over the last 10 or so days have been streams like these. I muted the audio on this clip because of the song playing being a DMCA risk. I like how that's the danger of this clip is the music, not so much the actual sexual content of it, because this is fine by Twitch's standards. Or at least it was prior to their new announcement and policy change. But this is the clear chair meta. So this is a streamer named Novaru. She's now showing off her hot tub, justifying her presence in the hot tubs category because one of Twitch's arbitrary rules is in order to be in a bikini, you need a hot tub nearby, even though you don't have to interact with it. And then she bought a clear chair and set up a camera underneath it so that way you can get the entire kit and caboodle package view here. She's got the triple camera setup here, so you're getting the fucking Dolby Theater experience of ass. It's like the cinematic camera when you drive a car in Grand Theft Auto 4, but the only shots you're getting are ass. This next clip I'm about to show you is from Asian Bunny X, but I can't find the original broadcast or clips. I can only find Wubby's clip when he was going over it on stream, so I'm gonna play you Wubby reacting to it.
This is next level shit! I also admittedly recorded this for longer than I think I needed to. It's about a minute long recording. Could have just been 10 seconds. I don't know. No, I mean, listen, okay. I'm not sitting here hating on the ladies because I keep saying this, right? If they ain't banned, that's on Twitch, right? If they ain't banned, it's on Twitch. Twitch is saying it's allowed, right? That being said, I'm just going to say this because okay, I just have to. I feel like I'd be not honest with myself if I don't. Come on, bro. I mean, she got the automatic jiggler, bro.
This stream is blasting all of your senses here. It's a full-blown sensory overload. I can only imagine where she's going to be in a year from now once the gamer smell box comes out, which allows you to smell games. She could easily integrate that into her content here, where you can smell her, like her sweat. If she farts, you start huffing her fumes through the gamer scent box, like the sky is the limit. The future has never looked brighter. Like, there is so much going on right there. So she's standing on the automatic jiggler, which Wubby points out. So it's got her whole body vibrating, and it's got her butt cheeks bouncing around like they're caught in some kind of perpetual earthquake simulation. She's oiled up with an extremely tight bikini on, which looks like some high-level armor out of an MMO, and it also functions as a green screen, which she's broadcasting a video, so that way your attention is always on her honkers, and her milkers happen to be jiggling around because she's on, like, the fucking wave simulator, like, it's like she's on a surfboard constantly getting hit with turbulence or something. There's just so much going on. There's also Helldivers 2 gameplay somewhere on the screen there. I already forgot where, because nobody's attention is going to that when everything else is happening there. But yeah, you get the point. There was a bit of a problem on Twitch when it came to how much sexual content was starting to pop off there. So Twitch stepped in and said, okay, enough is enough. Heavens to Betsy, we've got to rein this in and get it under control. So they just made a blanket statement that any kind of content that focuses on intimate parts, that refers to breasts, that refers to butts, that refers to groins, anything that focuses on those areas for a prolonged period of time, which is a little vague, but I imagine it means like a matter of minutes, or if like there's an entire cam dedicated to your ass, it's not allowed. Period. Point blank. That is a bannable offense. Now, as I mentioned, this isn't anything super new. Since the very beginning of Twitch, there's always been this game of cat and mouse with sexual content and what is and is not allowed. And I'm not trying to go all old man on you here. I remember when they first invented Twitch titties. But I do remember back in the early days of Twitch, there was a policy that made it so gameplay had to be on screen in order for it to be allowed on Twitch. They didn't have a just chatting category. So if any creators wanted to do anything sexual, what they would do is they'd put a little RuneScape gameplay in the tiniest little box imaginable and just grind an AFKable skill like woodcutting and make the primary camera cleavage. And then you know how the rest of this story goes. You know how that anime plays out. Eventually just chatting gets introduced, and then eventually the creation of the hot tubs category gets introduced, and now Twitch has been having a lot of issues with sexual content on the platform. They had that policy a couple months back where they just allowed full-blown hentai, which is just drawn porn. They were totally fine with drawn porn for like 24 hours before they were like, whoops-a-daisy. That was a bit much, huh, guys? And now they're starting to get to this point where creators are starting to cross a line where it's getting to the point of like, there's a lot of softcore porn on Twitch now. And I'm very curious to see what kind of creative ways people will find to get around this policy change, because I don't think this is going to get rid of sexual content on Twitch overnight or anything. But I do wonder how they're going to navigate this now. I do think it's always going to be prevalent on Twitch because that content is so popular and there's so many people on Twitch. There's clearly a huge market for people digesting that kind of content with colonoscopy cam and all of that. So I'm just wondering what's next. How are they going to invent another meta post Twitch policy change here? And I guess we'll just have to wait and see. That's really about it. See ya. Fuck. Come on, fight him! There we go, first try. Let's go. So clean, didn't even need the banner. So fucking... I'm no meteorologist, but I'm still going...
Dragon Age is a game that a lot of people have been keeping an eye on for a while, and there are multifaceted reasons for it, okay? For one, this is coming from a previously very highly respected studio, BioWare. BioWare, however, in case you're maybe a little younger, you don't remember, BioWare has had a couple of big ol' swings and misses. They had Project Dylan, which eventually became Anthem, and that was pretty poopy. So that game, in some ways, it was ahead of its time. It was a live service game that was just lacking in content completely. So maybe it was ahead of its time. But Anthem didn't really go anywhere. It was just a big old flop, unfortunately. And prior to that, they had a game in 2017 in a very popular franchise, Mass Effect, with Mass Effect Andromeda. And that game was so broken at launch, also sort of ahead of its time, that it became a meme that whole year. It was a total disaster. So they had like 2 back-to-back colossal flops. Yeah, the famous meme from it was "My face is tired," where you're talking to one of the NPCs and she's like, the dialogue was unbelievable. She's like, "My face is tired." And then they tried to come out and be like, no, that was, the subtitles were wrong. It's actually "My faith is tired." I'm like, it still sounds like face, not faith. Antha. Maybe she has like a lisp. I don't know, but it didn't sound like Faith at all, or like an inverse lisp. Is that a thing where like instead of saying th on your s's, you say an s where th's should be? I don't think that's a thing, but anyway, either way, it doesn't make sense. Exactly, Doom. It doesn't make sense either way, because either it's your Faith is tired, which doesn't really make sense, or your face is tired, which makes sense, but also it's just not how humans talk. So the whole thing was weird. But anyway, there's been a lot of eyes on them for a while because people are still hoping. Maybe, just maybe, they can figure it out. Maybe they come back swinging with Dragon Age Inquisition, or Freudian slip, Dragon Age Dreadwolf, and they blow us all away, and they actually get back, on the horse and show us how it's done. Because there was always a little bit of cope going on with some of these games, where sometimes people were like, no, the only reason that BioWare screwed up Anthem and Dragon Age, Mass Effect Andromeda, was because they were forced to use the EA official engine of choice, which was Frostbite, I believe. I always get Frostbite and Snowdrop mixed up, but I think Snowdrop is the Ubisoft one. So I think it was Frostbite. They were forced to use the Frostbite engine, which was an engine developed primarily for like Battlefield and shooters and stuff, and they were forced to use it for Mass Effect Andromeda, and it just didn't work well. It's an engine that's not built on like RPG systems. It's just not. And so when you tried to make a game like that, it didn't work. The whole thing just kind of fell apart. And so people tried to blame like EA corporate for it, but then like Anthem came and it's like, okay, this is getting harder to excuse. Like it's back to back. They're still using it. Like my hope would be after all these years, if they're still using EA tools and stuff, that they have found ways to maybe fix it and improve it, but I don't know. Is there official confirmation? What engine does Dreadwolf use? Yeah, it does say they're using the Frostbite engine again. So hopefully they've just made enough improvements that it's improved. This post on Reddit from 4 years ago says they're using Anthem's code base on the Frostbite engine, so unlike Dragon Age Inquisition, Mass Effect Andromeda, and Anthem, they're not starting from scratch and have an RPG story progression physics systems already built in to build off of, worth noting in this case. So they're in a better starting spot than they were with those games, but it still is a little worrisome, right? Now maybe they get all the tech issues fixed, they get all that figured out, and maybe let's just assume technology is not the issue here. Okay, it's not really a concern. They can focus purely on the mechanics, on the story, and things like that. They are fighting an uphill battle here. And they're fighting an uphill battle in a couple of ways. For one, they have hemorrhaged a lot of talent. What happens when you have a flop is that nobody wants to work for you. Like, and it makes sense. If you ask yourself, like, you get out of college, or maybe you're leaving one studio and you're looking for a new job, would you want to go and work with the company that released Game of the Year last year, or has released some amazing games that you know and love in the last decade? Or do you want to go work for the team that has had 2 back-to-back colossal flops? You probably don't want to work for the company that makes the flops. Even if you grew up liking their games and stuff, you probably want to go where, exactly, you want to go ride the horse that has won the races, not the one that can't figure out how to gallop, right? It only makes sense, right? So with that having been said, they've hemorrhaged a bit of talent over the years, where a lot of people have left to go work at other companies, which is very normal. A lot of people in the game development industry bounce around from team to team. Like, it's pretty rare nowadays, as far as I can tell, to stay at one studio for years. I mean, it's well, for like decades. Okay. It's common to work on a game, but it's not that common to work on a team for like 20, 30 years. That's why like Bethesda Game Studios is so exceptional in a lot of ways. Same with Naughty Dog, because they have a lot of people at those studios that have been there for ages and have worked on many games together. And that camaraderie, that shared experience, and that knowledge and friendship can lead to some really interesting collaborative situations where people are able to work really well together. And Dragon Age and their developers have not had that because they've had 2 back-to-back flops. I mean, they have not had a successful game since 2014, which at this point is a decade ago. Now, bear in
Can't
mind,
climb on top of the
other
truck.
studios take
Okay.
a decade to make a game, and they come out swinging, and they do a great job. Other studios, you know, they might take 10 years to make a game, and it turns into Suicide Squad. So you just never really know how
Right.
it's going to play out. But when you're talking about talent, that's a big consideration because talent makes games. It's not the engine, it's not the above the door. It's the people within the studio that make the games. And my biggest concern
No point
for
in that.
BioWare is that they don't have the same talent base that they had back in 2014. A lot of those people have moved on to go other places. Still could be successful, still could be awesome, but it's not the same company it was. In addition to all of this, and perhaps the biggest hurdle for them to overcome, the elephant in the room, Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate is going to be the albatross around many fantasy games next for the next decade. Everybody's going to be comparing every fantasy RPG to it nonstop. It's going to be, I mean, it is the new standard. It just is. And
I can't
that doesn't
assassinate him
mean
here.
that like Dragon Age Dreadwolf is going to be bad, but I do think whenever anybody's talking about Dragon Age, it's going to be, okay, but does it do this like Baldur's Gate? Okay, that's cool, but does it do this like Baldur's Gate? Does it have this like Baldur's Gate?
Okay, I can't.
How does it handle consequences in
fuck?
decisions like Baldur's Gate? You know, that's going to constantly be brought up time and time again. Okay, so just be ready for it. And it's good on the one hand because it raises the standard. It demands better from these companies because Baldur's Gate 3 was exceptionally good in many ways. It was an exceptional game. It was different than the standard. And that's good because it pushes the industry forward. But it's also very tough for other studios because they are not Larian. They might not have
fuck
had the
'em.
same budget as Larian. So it's going to be tough to live up to that standard. You know, it's going to be difficult to live up to that. So a lot of eyes are on them. But there are reasons to think that they might actually find a bit of success from this. We're hopeful. Okay, so this is an article from Game Rant,
Fuck.
and this is just a breakdown of their development process as they've worked on it. It's set to receive a full reveal later this year, and it's even expected to launch this year, which is crazy. It's expected still to release later this year, potentially in the
Holy
fall or winter.
shit.
Doesn't mean it's guaranteed, could slip, but right now they expect it to release later this year. So it's much further along than we might have thought. A lot of people are like, well, we haven't really seen a lot of gameplay or reveals or anything. Not many people are talking about it, so it's probably still a ways off. Apparently it's pretty damn close. Apparently they're wrapping it up and they're getting ready to do some big reveals. So I think this summer we're going to see a lot about it. They say, the highlights: development has been tumultuous, with various iterations and changes over a decade. From a live service project to a single sequel or single player sequel, Dragon Age Dreadwolf has seen diverse shifts. That's concerning. It was a live service project for a while. Oof. After a challenging development process, BioWare's future success may hinge on the reception of, or to what will supposedly be an action-heavy experience in Dreadwolf. Interesting. They say it's the fourth entry in their popular RPG franchise. Sure is, baby. Across with multiple iterations of the same project that were canceled and reimagined, BioWare has gone through a long development cycle that will hopefully pay off when Dreadwolf finally arrives. While the CRPG style of Dragon Age Origins first established the IP as something akin to a spiritual successor to BioWare's Baldur's Gate. That's right, they're the OGs. Subsequent entries diverged from the genre in ways that have caused fundamental design changes
He
unique
just
to
drowns.
each Dragon Age title. Dragon Age 2 took a
He forgets how
controversial
to swim.
plunge into
Just
more of an
steps right
action
in front of
RPG
him.
style at the expense of customization and tactical combat, while Inquisition further expanded the series' identity with its focus on semi-open world. Considering leaks and official sources regarding the state of Dreadwolf's most recent incarnation, almost said incantation. It seems that the fourth Dragon Age will continue this trend of featuring a new style, which will be the culmination of several scrapped attempts at the project. I mean, whenever I hear that there's been multiple iterations, including an iteration that was a live service game, that gets me worried. But, you know, because every time that a game is worked on, and then there's a pivot and a pivot and a pivot, remnants of the original thing still remain. Very rarely are companies starting from absolute scratch. And you can tell that in Suicide Squad, you can tell that in something like Skull and Bones, where you feel like there's multiple games at the core of it that are still holding over. You know, it's interesting because you can always see
oh, I bet that's from when the game was like this. Oh yeah, I bet that's when the game was like this, and then they changed it, but they kept that part. It's kind of cool because you can see those threads carry through, but it also worries me because I don't want a Dragon Age that's a live service game, and I don't think anybody else does either. So, the original version of Dreadwolf. Prior to the development hell which followed, BioWare was initially working on a follow-up to the events of Inquisition's solo-centric Trespasser DLC, which began production in 2015. Project Joplin was set to be a sequel that Dragon Age fans had come to expect, a single-player, story-centric experience which could have potentially recaptured the appreciation Origins received. This game would have allegedly focused on a smaller zone with more tailored content in a manner that could have reflected the studio's CRPG days. But this project wouldn't make it to release. Dun dun dun! 2 years were dated. I can't read. 2 years were dedicated to Project Joplin. From around the time of Trespasser's release in 2015 to late 2017, the fourth Dragon Age was developed within an atmosphere that was apparently one of the most positive that Summit BioWare had experienced. Despite this, the financial circumstances of the studio under EA led to a change so significant that it marked the end of the Project Joplin version of Dreadwolf. It's unknown if assets or work from this project, or rather from this time period, are even being utilized now, but what came next was a detour which lasted another several years. The canceled live service of Project Morrison. Oh, EA. Oh, EA. A shift away from Dragon Age's single-player focus. It initially seemed that the sequel to Inquisition was going to lean back into what Origins first established, but 2017 instead brought about the transition into a fully monetized live service title, expanding on the smaller multiplayer component of the third game. Project Morrison was a full-force effort to bring the Dragon Age series into a genre which its fans had little to do with. The studio announced its heavy focus on reactive storytelling that would exist within a constantly updated world, but this production was ultimately failed, but this production also ultimately failed to yield a final product by the time of 2021. So they worked on this for like 3-4 years as a live service game and then decided to can it once again. They changed their mind once again. Reverting Project Morrison's changes over the 3 years. While it was teased over the course of its development and even in the months leading up to its cancellation, the production of Project Morrison's live service Dragon Age basically came to an end during early 2021 when the decision was made to move the game back towards a single-player direction. Some fans may find it confusing that Dreadwolf has gone through such a sporadic and unpredictable production cycle before eventually landing on a definitive style, but the reality of its developers' circumstances through the past few years explains why creating Dreadwolf has been anything but an easy process. Sure enough, they've had some troubles. It might not have been the studio's most unanimously well-received game upon release, but Inquisition set the record for BioWare's biggest launch in terms of sales. The studio was known for some of the most popular RPGs through the 2000s and beyond, but its legacy would falter when 2017's Andromeda launched to general criticisms that was unprecedented for its franchise. The upcoming Dragon Age would be changed into a live service title alongside Anthem at that time, possibly a reaction to Andromeda's mixed reception. When Anthem went on to fall below expectations, however, it may have set the tone for the current single-player iteration of Dreadwolf alongside changes in the team. This also really worries me, though, because the people that are good at live service games are good at live service games. They're not single-player devs. They're not RPG devs. Like, it's just a different talent set. And we've learned that over the last few years as we've seen so many of these studios that specialize in single player stuff try to make live service stuff. They're not always the best at it. And when they specialize in live service stuff and they try to go single player, there's also some learning, kind of growing pains that go along with it. Because again, the games are made by people, not by the studio. So if you bring in live service devs to make a live service Dragon Age game, that's what they're good at. If you try to pivot once again into a single player thing, that's not necessarily what they're good at. It's going to take some time and some effort to kind of refigure or reconfigure your production process. Beyond that, when you're going from single player to live service to single player, you went from live service where you had a team of world-class talent. You go to live service, a lot of them are frustrated. They don't want to work on live service, so they leave and they go work on single player stuff elsewhere. But then you flip back to single player, so then the live service guys are frustrated because they make live service games. They specialize in networking and all this stuff, so they pivot back. and they leave and you have to rehire stuff. So you just end up with extremely high turnover for really no reason, just because you couldn't make up your mind. And this is one of the problems with Ubisoft. It's one of the problems with EA, is that they're constantly chasing waves instead of making their own. Say what you will about Larian. Larian made their own damn wave. They basically made a tsunami with Baldur's Gate 3, doubling down on what they knew they were good at, and they did such a good job, it created a tidal wave. And all of these other companies like EA, like Ubisoft, they just look for the waves. They try to spot them coming from a distance and then ride them into the shore. And that can sometimes work. I mean, sometimes you can do that and it times out great and it's well executed and you make a ton of money and you're happy with it. But you'd be much better off just making your own waves, making really good games that make those waves by themselves. It's just, unfortunately, for whatever reason, Ubisoft and EA especially, they don't seem to understand that. And so they just try to trend chase, and you end up with games that are really out of date by the time you get them, because they make a choice to like chase a live service trend in 2017 and be like, oh, we can do Destiny. We can just do what Destiny's doing, or we can just do what Fortnite or PUBG or whatever is doing. Let's just do that, but with Dragon Age. And then by the time we get it, it's 5, 6, 7 years later, and it's woefully out of date. Nobody's interested in it anymore because they tried to ride a wave that already broke on shore, right? It just doesn't really work that way. And so they pivoted back. The loss of key BioWare staff. Yeah, this is the crucial thing. The development hell of Dreadwolf has spanned around 10 years, and this time period has proven to be one of the most challenging in BioWare's history. General Manager Aaron Flynn would depart before longtime creative director Mark Laidlow did the same back in 2017. But this was just the beginning. James Olin, a prolific designer of the studio and one of its first members, left in 2018 and took his experience with him. Replacement GM Casey Hudson and executive producer Mark Dara did the same in 2020 before around 50 layoffs hit BioWare in 2023 and cut several veteran employees. It makes sense that the project has taken so long when noting this context, but it might finally materialize this year. Again, it's really tough to make a world-class game when your world-class talent is either leaving or being fired. Shocker. It's quite difficult, dare I say. For 2023's Dragon Age Day event that took place in December, BioWare unveiled a trailer for Dreadwolf which showed off parts of Thetis that the player seems set to explore. This was the most concrete footage of the project released yet, and it came with the announcement of further reveal later this summer. It's unknown when the full title will end up launching, but the build-up of nearly a decade of production with nothing to show for it has some fans anticipating a possible holiday release for Dreadwolf. At this rate, that's kind of what I'm expecting. Maybe November. That'd be a safe bet. BioWare's future is likely riding on Dreadwolf's success. Absolutely agree. Given the comparatively lower status of its past few games when compared to its biggest hits, BioWare might be perceived as a studio that has fallen out of favor with many fans at this point. Now comprised of a different team after a multitude of departures, Dreadwolf will be under pressure to prove that its studio still has what it takes to be recognized as a pillar of the RPG genre. It probably won't retain the feeling that Origins originally gave fans, but Dragon Age Dreadwolf's action-centric gameplay still has the chance to strike a balance and receive praise when it does eventually launch. That's a chance, I agree, but the stakes are very, very high, and I think they are... The stakes are super high, expectations are super high, and I wish them the best. I would love for this to pop off and be amazing. I mean, I would love it, but I'm not overly confident. But again, maybe this is also like an asset. Maybe this is a benefit because, again, kind of like Ubisoft with Star Wars Outlaws, maybe it's a net positive because expectations are probably going to be really low for Dragon Age. So if it's half decent, if it's like an 8 or a 9 out of 10, which that's above half decent, but if it's like a 7 to 8 out of 10, and people are expecting like Anthem or Mass Effect Andromeda, it's a pleasant surprise. And people are like, oh, actually, I'm having a really good time with it. This is awesome. And maybe that's enough for it to be successful and for them to start getting their feet back under them. But there is no doubt BioWare from 2014, that's not the same company that's there now. It's a almost extremely different group of people, or entirely different group of people. It's got a lot of expectations riding on them. I don't know if the studio is shut down if this flops as well. It becomes really hard to argue that they should stay open if this also flops. Like, imagine that this launches and it's a technical disaster. It's unfun. The stories and the writing is terrible. It's just across the board. It's like a 5 out of 10. It's terrible. If it is on that scale of a flop, I don't know how EA justifies keeping them open. I mean, how do you do that? 3 flops back to back. But try again. We'll give it another shot. I just can't imagine they let them stay open. So what you're saying is they sandbagged themselves with Anthem and Andromeda on purpose to help this game. Yeah, it's all part of a grand conspiracy. Yeah. Yeah, I think people will make their minds even before it comes out, and even if the game is good, they will consider it trash. Maybe FK Play. I mean, I do think that there is an unfortunate trend in the industry right now where people think that just everything has to be a scandal. You know, I think it's because it's fun to watch a dumpster fire. I mean, it's fun to see a game like Saints Row Reboot that looks bad and then is bad and crashes and burns. And sometimes I think it can turn the community into a hammer in search of a nail. That sometimes hits a nail, but also sometimes it just starts breaking stuff and smashing stuff that didn't need to be broken. But at the core, I mean, most good games, as long as they don't give ammunition to people that, like, you know, ammunition for things that are bad, there's nothing really to complain about. Like, if you just put out a good game, it'll kind of just speak for itself. But if you give them ammunition to be upset about, they're going to be upset about it. You know, you can have a really good game like Dragon's Dogma 2, but if you have monetization, if you have terrible PC performance and console performance and stuff, you're delivering a good game, but you also are handing them a bunch of ammunition to attack you with when you just didn't need to do that. Like, if you just didn't do that, you would have been fine. The game would have been overwhelmingly successful. But now all anybody wants to talk about is the dumpster fire parts, you know? So as long as like the game is polished, it runs well, and it's not monetized out the ass, right there, those are the 2 big pieces of ammunition people use to attack these types of games right now when they're present. So as long as they can avoid those 2 things, it's polished, it's not like super stupid monetized, whatever, then it's just being evaluated as a video game. That's all they're going to be looking at. And if that's the case, then we're set.
He took my thing. Red flag.
I'm down to file a corpse. Little necrophilia.
You guys know that I think Days Gone is pretty underrated. I actually think that it's a pretty solid game. It's got plenty of clunk, plenty of issues. I would have done it differently if I could go back in time now. But at the time, I gave Days Gone my game of the year because I didn't want to give it to Death Stranding because I thought Death Stranding's story was just so asinine. I couldn't handle it. As much as I like delivering packages and stuff, and found it relaxing, I just could not justify giving it Game of the Year. So I was like, what else is there? I'll give it to the game I want to see a sequel for the most. That was my metric. So I was like, oh, I'll give Days Gone the Game of the Year award. And over the years, it's kind of become a cult classic. People have actually started to really get stoked on it and want to give it a real chance. And a lot of people have played it. It went to PlayStation Plus for a while. I don't know if it still is there, but people were able to download it for a while. And then it came to PC. A ton of people played it on PC. I think it sold over 1 million copies there alone. So people were really, really into it, right? Which is great. You know, I'm glad to see it. But something happened. There was a big falling out within the developers, like the upper levels of the developers. And they decided to part ways. So John Garvin, who was like the game's primary director, he left the studio, Sony Bend, and that was after, you know, he was really frustrated with Sony's response to the game. They apparently didn't give them much support on the back end. They also said they basically got their sequel canned, and then whatever the Days Gone studio was being given to work on next, they were not super thrilled with it. John Garvin also blamed the negative response of the game. Let me pull this up. This is from a year and a half ago. He said that the response and middling reviews were because of tech issues and woke reviewers. And his specific things, what he specifically said was it had reviewers who couldn't be bothered to actually play the game. And 3, it had woke reviewers who couldn't handle a gruff white biker looking at his date's ass. Yeah, and there were There were a couple of instances that were linked in like the comments. I remember seeing that original post, and they pointed to like clips of reviewers being like, and it's just another gruff white male to play with. And it's disappointing to see Sony take so many steps back in terms of diversity and stuff with this protagonist and his love interest being white bikers. And it's like, yeah, that's a stupid reason to hate on the game.
Bro,
I agree.
come.
But as somebody that likes the game, it did have technical issues. It did have some kind of annoying things where he would constantly talk to himself. And, you know, there were issues with the game. I think to dismiss it because the main character is white is absolutely ridiculous. I would agree with him there, but I don't think that's the only reason. But I don't think he's saying it's the only reason it was poorly received, or at least received mixed reactions. But Sony Bend, they distanced themselves from Garvin afterwards, and it caused just a lot of drama. But what has all of this led to? What's the point of all of this? Well, we haven't known what the Days Gone studio has been working on pretty much since. I mean, they worked on a couple of, like, there were rumors they were working with Naughty Dog to help on The Last of Us Online for a bit, but then it wasn't clear if that was absolutely happening. And then after a little while, it was said that they were working on their own game finally. And so we were all like, ooh, interesting.
Two of them.
But what's happened is there is a job listing that's been posted. Okay, this job listing, let's just hear it. Okay, it's at PlayStation Global in Bend, Oregon. This is PlayStation Sony Bend Studios, okay, in Bend, Oregon. Beautiful, beautiful place. I mean, it looks just like the game, basically. I mean, they basically just set the game in their hometown.
Go get it.
And what this job entails is very, very disheartening. As somebody that was interested in this studio a lot. It's basically just a lead project manager job. So in typical respects, you know, it's a leadership role within the studio. They coordinate activities in a scaled, agile environment, working with multiple stakeholders, product owners, craft leads, producers,
good shot.
teams, and work to develop potentially shippable product and increments deliverables each sprint. Basically, the project manager is going to be in charge of supervising development on a project that has multiple phases of deliverables. Now, this could just be a regular game. It could be like, okay, we need to deliver one, like the beta at 0.5. We need to deliver regular updates. We have to ship 1.0, and then we have to do these patches and these side releases and things. But that's not actually what it is. You notice that it specifically mentions working with multiple stakeholders, working to provide potentially shippable product increments and deliverables each sprint. It's starting to sound like individual little deliverables at regular paces, right? That's not super common in the single player space, right? What are the other requirements? Let me show you. Proven experience, 5 years in project management within the gaming industry, a deep understanding of game development cycles, processes, and latest trends with emphasis on live operations. Stinky. Starting to see what's happening, starting to see what's happening. Yeah. I mean, this basically goes through hands-on game development experience in leadership roles, shipping AAA live service games. And they just break down in extended detail how this job is for a project manager that needs experience in live service projects specifically, which is quite disappointing. In this article, it also says that ideally the successful applicant will have, quote, experience redefining studios from traditional boxed product focused game development into live service development studios in a key leadership role. So they're straight up saying the person who gets this job should have a history of transforming a single player development studio that ships traditional boxed products, and they need to be able to transform the studio into a live service one and be in a leadership role during that. So they said that they were working on a game that was going to take like the progress and the tools and open world elements and systems from Days Gone and transform it into a new game, but it seems like now that new game is just going to be a big live service game and nothing more. Really disappointing to see, honestly. Really disappointing. And now it's starting to make sense why so many of the leadership of the studio left. It's starting to make sense why a lot of the writers and stuff left. They're just moving on, which is just disappointing. I mean, it's too bad. It's too bad. And this is once again another holdover of the Jim Ryan legacy of just taking their single party studios and trying to transform them into live service studios to pump out more live service games. And maybe their live service game ends up being awesome. Maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe it is just Days Gone, but an MMO with these hordes of zombies and stuff. That could be interesting because the hordes were super cool, and that was some impressive tech they had.
Hate that guy.
So maybe they do something like that. I don't know. But it's damn disappointing to see that not only are we not getting Days Gone 2 or anything, but the studio is hiring people specifically to transform it into a live service development studio, which is just really, really frustrating. Yeah, I mean, back in 2021, Sony confirmed that Bend was working on a new IP, which was building on the deep open world systems they developed with Days Gone, which deep open world systems developed on a single player game. We all thought that meant they were working on a single player game. They were not, apparently. They've been working on a live service game, and they're still hiring to expand that out. So I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it seems that Sony has chosen to bend studios over and raw dog them with live service stuff, unfortunately, which is just disappointing. Looks like their days are gone. Looks like their days gone too.
He took my thing. Red flag, red flag.
16 times the detail.
In case you guys missed it, the one and only man, the myth, the legend, Ken Levine, did a series of interviews. And apparently a few weeks ago, they invited a few select creators out to try, like 4 to 5 hours is what most of them were saying. They got to
slow
play,
walking
this
mission,
new
I see.
Judas game. Now, Judas is the
Get
up
the
and coming
joint
game
ready.
from Ken Levine's new studio. The original studio that made BioShock was like shut down and reformed into this new studio that he's running. And he's been working on it pretty much for about a decade. It's been about 10 years he's been working on it. He finished BioShock Infinite, started working on this. He gave a talk at GDC 2014 describing his idea for a new game and how he wanted to do this like narrative Lego thing. Nobody really knew what he was talking about. And then he went off and he's been working for years and years and years. And pretty much because he's Ken Levine, Take-Two, the parent company, has been like, okay, do whatever you need to do. Like, whatever. Take your time. You make great games. Who cares? Just put something out eventually. And it seems like he's starting to get closer to that point. There still is no release date for Judas. They still have not nailed anything down specifically, but they did show off the game for an extended period of time. 4 to 5 hours is quite a while. And they actually did some interviews with Ken Levine, asking him questions about it, which is awesome. I mean, I think the gameplay looks really solid. It looks quite polished for being a game with no release date even still. And I think a lot of people were pretty impressed with what they showed in terms of footage. Now, they talked to, or he invited Jeff Keighley, I forget the name of the other gentleman from IGN, one of the Ryan McCaffrey, is that right? Something like that. But they invited them out, and then they also invited the members of the Friends Per Second podcast out to play the game and talk to Ken Levine about it during extended interviews and stuff. And it's interesting. It's interesting because it seems like they've done a lot of thought on the world, a lot of thought on this ship that you're on, a lot of thought about the narrative and how things kind of overlap and how relationships can cross over between these different characters. They describe this thing where you're basically going to have the big three characters who are this like sheriff guy, which I believe is voiced by Troy Baker, because of course he is, Nefertiti, and then another character that you can see right here, who's like the therapist of the ship that handles like all relationships and stuff. And the idea is that they have a relationship with the player character, and as you go through the game, your relationships can change with each of them based on your actions and decisions. So if you do something to cater to her, you might end up pissing off the sheriff dude, and then he'll either give you information that taints your view of her or skew your interpretation of her actions. Or they might try to sabotage your relationship with her, trying to just make things more dynamic. And the idea is that, again, in Ken Levine's description of it, it's built like narrative Legos where each brick is effectively a different part of the story, and you can rearrange them in different ways to make your own story. So each person who plays the game has a different experience. Now, that sounds interesting. I'm not opposed to that concept. I mean, I still have questions though, because I listened to the extended interviews they did. I listened to all of it, every second of it. And it was like, he did this hour and 20-minute interview with Ryan McCaffrey. I was right, it was Ryan McCaffrey. And the Dorito Pope himself, Jeff Geoff Keighley. And they talked to them, and then the Friends Per Second podcast, they also interviewed him for an extended period. I've listened to it all. And at the end of that, I still really am not sure how this game is truly unique. Because anytime specifics would come up, naturally and understandably, Ken Levine didn't want to give specifics because it would spoil the game if you knew all the specifics of it. So I appreciate him not spoiling all those specifics. But at the same time, all that we got basically sounded like there were going to be 3 characters in the game, and they each sort of have a reputation system with the player based on your actions. And as you play through the game, you are going to like change your reputation with them. And if you have good reputation, you can take them to the end and the other guys get screwed. And if you have a bad reputation, they don't get taken to the end, but these other characters do. It's just not that clear if it's truly narrative Lego bricks or if it's like narrative pillars, where you can pick one pillar for each run, where you partnered with this guy primarily, and then the next run you partner with her, and then with her, and each time is a different outcome or a different narrative flair. But it's really not that dynamic. And it comes with the territory of trying to have a really crazy, complicated narrative system, because anytime people want specifics, which they should, you can't really give it to them. It's the same thing with this, if you're talking about what's another super narrative heavy game, like I don't know, Detroit Become Human. If somebody's like, well, why is this really cool? What's something cool that happens as a result of your decisions in Detroit Become Human? You can give them specifics, but it's gonna spoil potentially one of the coolest moments in the game if they were to take those same actions and end up with that same consequence. So you can't really be specific other than just being like, yeah, your decisions have consequences. So it's an inherently difficult game to be transparent with, just to be fully clear with it. It's an interesting idea, but after all of this, it's still not super precise what this narrative Lego thing even means. But I mean, after all of this, do you guys have a clear idea of what this game is after the descriptions and ads and interviews and stuff that you've seen and heard? Do you feel like you understand what this game is even supposed to be? Because this is like the description of the narrative, I did it again. The narrative Lego that he makes, okay?
Yeah. And the metaphor is basically like Lego. You've got a bunch of these pre-crafted bricks, right? Yeah. And they're really well designed. And the bricks know how to communicate with each other. They know how to interface with each other. And this is, and this is the genius of it. You can build, how many things can you build out of those bricks?
Solid.
Right? So you have a bunch of handcrafted elements, but they come with them a set of rules based upon how they combine, so you can make almost any.
And you're saying story, not just the actual architecture, right? It's like both pieces of it, right? It's like how does a narrative?
Yeah, or so taking the Lego metaphor, we started thinking, well, could we use handcrafted elements, but are not huge entire levels, but sub-elements like lines of speech, pieces of art, texture maps, encounters, loot, even the layout of the whole experience. Yeah. And make those out of modular chunks and then teach the game. We call it pseudo-procedural because it's not like Minecraft where everything's being generated off a set of pure mathematical heuristics. You build all these smaller elements in the game and you teach the game how to make good levels, essentially.
And good story.
Yeah. And most importantly, reactive to what you do. So when you decide to go, I'm going all the way over here, then the game knows what to do. Because in Bioshock Infinite, the game just would have panicked and said, I can't do that. I can't do any of that. And so, but that was major R&D task.
So it sounds interesting, right? Like, okay, so the idea is that pretty much no matter what the player does, you can respond to it. The game can totally alter itself to react to that choice. And the example he brought up before this was that in Bioshock Infinite, like if you did something to upset Elizabeth, that was her name, right? If you did something to upset her, in the real world, she might have been like, screw you, I'm leaving you. And run off and go off and try to solve her problems by herself without Booker's help. But the game couldn't work that way. They just couldn't make that happen. To have all these levels designed around both characters being present, but then all of a sudden now one of them is gone, it just can't respond to it properly. So his idea was to try and create systems that can respond to all of those dynamic events. So if you piss off this character, or you do something really drastic to them or with them, then the rest of the game has like a cascading reactive effect to that decision and has serious consequences for each of those actions and decisions. It's a cool idea, but again, we've heard this many, many times. Like one of the best examples of old school AI stuff is the Radiant AI in Oblivion. And this was just really, really funny because this was something Todd Howard talked about in like 2005. Okay.
Design this system, Radiant AI, that allows the people in the world to react really intelligently, and they sort of have their own goals, so they can look at their environment around them and decide how they want to accomplish them.
Our NPCs exist no matter if you're there or not. They're doing what they're supposed to do. You can send a guy off to a dungeon to kill stuff, and you don't have to go with him. You go back to that dungeon, either he'll be dead or the things that he was supposed to kill will be dead. I mean, it will have happened whether you were there or not.
Like this guy, I can basically go up to him and say hi to him, and he'll greet me. He'll chat with me. His aggression.
And so they have all of this, like, these crazy systems and different stats and AI systems and stuff. When you played the game, it just felt like a regular open world game. It didn't really feel that revolutionary or anything. But if you listen to the interviews and the marketing stuff before the game came out, you would have thought that was going to be like one of the most groundbreaking games of all time with specifically the AI systems that they had there. So these types of ideas and concepts in game development are super, super cool. We've heard them many times before. Many people have tried to do really reactive, intelligent, dynamic systems within their games, but it's not very easy to pull off. Like it really, really is not. And you might have like a reactive system where maybe now the mission structure changes, or maybe now these secondary objectives don't trigger. Maybe all of that could happen, but whether it's fun, whether it feels good is a different question entirely. Because like he just said, they don't use procedural systems entirely. It's like they're putting pieces of levels together in response to your decisions. But again, like a lot of games that try to piece together modular components, they don't retain the same quality level or feeling of quality compared to truly handcrafted games from beginning to end, especially on subsequent run-throughs, especially if you're talking about, encounters that could start to grow repetitive. And that's something which I think is something worth bringing up. I mean, if we look at this, I don't know why that other video.
Why is he stopping?
This one doesn't. If we look at this and we do like repetitive,
he's just
here
stopping.
he mentions it.
We didn't want the audience to pay a price for the pseudo-proceduralism, that they were getting a less interesting looking level.
Yeah, it's tough time going over the bridge.
And that's why we sort of use this hybrid model of we handcraft elements and then that are very handcrafted, but they're
you have some
small.
beautiful cinematic moments. Like there's that. I think we have footage of one of the ones where
Classic kind of Bioshock caliber.
And Judas memories. You said those are the crystal. So there's one moment where like you get some of her memories. You get to collect those, which are the e-ticket sort of big, crazy moments. But then, as you said, with these moments of the big three, those levels, as you said, feel handcrafted. And as you said, I think there are things where posters change and other things like that. But then, like the narrative, also, as you said, I think
it has to be like, when I was talking about Bioshock Infinite, the problem was the world couldn't heal itself. If we wanted the player to do something different, I don't want to go down this corridor. I'm going to go over here. The game would be like, no. So we had to, I think, if you're actually to bullet point the big differences, I think in terms of the Bioshock fans, to get those big story moments, I'm sure, like, you saw like the dropship sequence, and you try to go down to Proxima and you run into the asteroid field, the very big moments, but then, and those are more bespoke, but then as you go onto the game, the story becomes massively reactive to you and massively dynamic, and you're going to have a very different experience, and you're going to have. But I think that we didn't want the player to pay the price for any of this, so that we wanted what do people expect out of us? They expect a really detailed world that feels lived in, feels believable, feels purposeful. You know, like a society that's thought through.
Thank you.
That it's not just like, oh, you know, the evil empire or overlords, blah, but how did this, you know, why did this sort of dark, fucked up world evolve?
the fuck?
Like, was it just somebody was evil, or was there a series of necessities, you know, about life in space that led to this kind of terrible situation where you're at the bottom of the barrel of this culture?
So again, very interesting. You can tell he's thought about this a lot, maybe too much, and so it's an interesting concept. It's a really interesting concept, and here's kind of my broad feeling with most of this. There are promises being made. There are pitches being made. There are things that they are trying to do which are extremely lofty and will be very difficult to pull off. But this is a game coming from Ken Levine, a noted perfectionist, somebody who has regularly put out Game of the Year contenders or winners every time he releases a game. He's basically been given a decade and an open-ended budget by the publisher to do whatever he wants, and he's very happy and confident with what they have now. And we also are at a technological point where there's never been a better time to be able to pull off something like this. Now, that's true of literally every moment in human history. Every moment, you know, technically is a better moment or a more opportune moment to pull this off. But I think if anybody could manage this, it would probably be Ken Levine. It's just a question mark for me of the minutia of moment-to-moment gameplay. Does it grow repetitive? Are encounters repetitive? Is there enough variety to keep things interesting? Because again, his idea is that he wants every player to have a different experience. One of the naturally really positive things about that is that repetitious, or rather repeated run-throughs become much more viable. You can play the game 5 times through and have a different story effectively and different gameplay experience every single time. That's super cool. But if each of the components are repetitive, that won't really matter. It'll still be boring and still get annoying to fight the same encounter 15 times. Or like if they have one movie theater block and it's a block or mod or a modular section of the game that is a movie theater, and there are different like security guards in that movie theater space, and it has a door on the back side of it that you can go out to get to the next area, and in one run through that might go to an alley, and another run through that might just open up to space, whatever. It might lead to an aquarium, who knows? But they have each of these modular sections that they kind of piece together into a level based on your decisions and actions in the game. And maybe even some of it is slightly randomized. Okay, but if I run into that movie theater 5 times, it's probably gonna feel like, okay, been there, done that. This is kind of annoying. And this is paired with a system that he described, you know, at the outset, which was this idea with the main character who is responsible for all of this happening, for the ship collapsing. And every time the player character dies, they come back, are 3D printed into the world. And that's an opportunity to like level up, to change your loadout, to make upgrades if you need to, things like that. And I would also fully expect that this is probably the reset for the procedural system. So if you think of it like a roguelike game where each run things change once again, that's basically what's happening here. So it's an interesting idea, but there's still so many questions. I didn't even see this. You know, there's still so many questions that I just don't know what's happening. Fearless Wolf, thank you for the 10 pounds. Games developers always remind me of bad used car salesmen when the car does like what all other cars can do, getting you from A to B. Or all that does matter is whether it gets you from A to B. All the rest is just gimmicks. I mean, sometimes. There are occasionally games with novel ideas or novel features and things. I do agree gimmicks tend to sell.
This
like,
is the
you remember with
smoothest
Death
grappling
Stranding, the whole
in
thing
the
with
game
Kojima.
that I've
Kojima said that he had
ever
created
felt.
an entire new genre. It's like, yeah, we have a new genre of game.
You don't have to
that
combo
I,
him,
Hideo
just critical
Kojima,
him.
your god, have invented. And we got the game, and it's like, no, it's just like a UPS delivery driver simulator, and there's like collaboration between players, but that's even in like From Software games where you can leave notes for other players and stuff. Like, this is not that novel. This isn't that crazy. Yeah, it's the FedEx genre. So like it was a gimmick pitched as like a totally new genre, and it just didn't end up actually being the case. So I agree. Sometimes like people can focus on gimmicks, and that's the whole selling point, and people fail to ask whether it like they're focused on the gimmick, and they forget to ask whether the gimmick is actually going to be fun or lead to things that are truly interesting. It's the same thing exactly with like Starfield, where it's 1,000 planets that can be explored. Cool. Is that even a good idea though? And as we learned when we got the game, probably wasn't that great of an idea. It probably was a bad idea, but the gimmick idea was super cool. 1,000 planets. How could that not be awesome, right? So that can be a hiccup for sure. Yeah, Starfield, 1,000 load screens to explore. Exactly. So I love the idea of this, but I am still not sure how novel it is. He describes the big three, which, as I mentioned, are like the cowboy, played by Troy Baker. There's Nefertiti, who's this character, famous biologist responsible for keeping people alive on the ship. Okay, and then the third character is Hope. So the big three, and the idea is that they'll pop up on the ship as you explore it in these kind of dynamic situations where they'll just appear to you and have a conversation with you. Say a few lines, and then things, shift and move.
That was horrible.
Based on your actions. And that's cool. All it reminds me of, does anybody
climb.
know what
Nice.
I'm going to say? Does anyone know what I'm going to say? It reminds me of the Joker in Batman Arkham Knight. If you haven't played that game, you should. But basically what happens is that the Joker, as sort of a figment, the game's like a decade old. I feel like I can talk openly about it. The Joker, of course, is like a figment of Batman's imagination in the game. It's not physically there. So as you explore Gotham City, you'll just like zip up to the top of a rooftop, and you'll just see the Joker sitting there like on a picnic blanket, drinking tea and eating snacks. And he'll just be like, "Oh, Bats, good to see you." And then you'll jump off and go do the rest of your thing. Or Man-Bat, I don't know, whatever his name is, that thing, when you are also zipping up to the top of a building. It's dynamic. It's not going to be the same building every time, but he'll actually pop out and scare you when you zip up to the top of just Man-Bat. It sounds made up, right? It's not Batman, it's Man-Bat. It's Man-Bear-Bat. But anyway, so this reminds me of that, where they're going to have dynamic encounters with these three characters. The only difference between this and Arkham Knight, as far as I can tell, is that the encounters, while dynamic and different for everybody, are going to be determined, and they're going to kind of pick from the list of 100 mini cutscenes or whatever. They're going to pick from that list based on your actions, and then play those dynamically as you explore the ship and do different things. Interesting.
Who's screaming?
Not that crazy novel, but still interesting that you could have narrative exposition happening dynamically all over the place. But I think it's games like Starfield that have really jaded me on the concept of like procedural mechanics in games, full stop, that still try to be narrative. If you want to go procedural, cool, you can do some awesome stuff with procedural stuff. But when you try to still maintain the same fidelity and quality of hand-built levels and maps and stuff, usually it starts to fall apart and it doesn't work quite as well. And again, Starfield being a great example of Bethesda being known for handcrafted environments, and then they try to go procedural and still have, like he's saying here, still have handcrafted chunks, or in this case, in the case of Starfield, it was like with handcrafted bases or research bases and centers or caves and mining operations and stuff.
Oh,
Those were all
shit.
handcrafted, but they were copy and pasted so often, and you ran into so many of them, or even the same one over and over again, that it just got stale and didn't feel truly unique or fun. So
Leave 'em
I
alone.
get worried whenever I hear that somebody that's trying to maintain a certain cinematic or narrative quality is leaning into procedural systems. This could be the first time it's really done amazingly well in a game like this. And again, if anybody could pull it off, it would probably be Ken Levine. And with the budget that they have and the resources they have, I think they could potentially pull it off. But
this
to
guy
me,
is
like,
tough.
this is an instance of
Holy
an industry
shit.
veteran who really knows what he's doing,
This
knows
guy
what
is
he's
tough.
talking about,
Oh my
promising a
God.
lot. And whenever we're promised a lot, you guys
I might
know
have to
me,
use a katana
I
on him.
get like a little skeptical. The red flags go a little bit. Because when you overpromise, it's really easy to underdeliver. And Ken Levine also has a history of sometimes overpromising stuff. In his original reveals for BioShock Infinite, there was a good amount of overpromising. And the game that we got still ended up being phenomenal, but it wasn't really the same game that was initially revealed to press and media. So I'll be keeping an eye on this very closely, and I want this to be very good. I really do. And again, if anybody could pull this off, it would be Ken Levine. But whenever I hear an industry veteran start to make big, broad, sweeping promises of super ambitious mechanisms and mechanics and stuff, I just start to get a little bit more cautious and guarded, especially when there's not a lot of specifics that can be given. And I understand, like, Jeff is not here to push and prod, he's not here to interrogate, but none of them asked like particularly hard-hitting questions, and probably because
didn't kill him. What
you know,
happened?
they're one of like 5 people that were
What are you gonna
welcomed
do?
in to see this game early, and they don't want to burn that bridge
Oh,
or be
beat
rude
his
or
ass.
anything. I get that. It's an early look. They probably don't have that much to show off or discuss.
Man.
But there are like a lot of big,
He was
weighty,
tough.
lofty promises being made, and it's just surprising to hear not a lot of detail on it. The game looks really, really good in the clips that we've seen, but I still don't really understand how this will fit together in moment-to-moment gameplay. And that could be because they're keeping it close to their chest because it's so awesome and so amazing that you have to just experience it yourself. Or it could be that it's like just really complicated. It's hard to explain. Maybe that's it. Or it might be that, yeah, it does get kind of repetitive. So that is a thing, but we're just not going to really talk about it, you know? That could be it as well. I don't know. What do you guys think? What's your... Can you put the explanation in MS Paint so we can understand it better? So anyway, what do you guys think? What do you guys think of all of this? After what you've seen, after what you've heard about it, is this something that you are, dare I say, hyped about? Is this something you're keeping an eye on? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings?
He took my thing. Red flag, red flag.
16 times the detail.
This also made me audibly laugh out loud and choke on my drink when I read it. So in case you missed it, this kind of came out of nowhere, but somebody reported, quote, from Bethesda, "We are in development on the next chapter, The Elder Scrolls 6. Even now, returning to Tamriel and playing early builds has us filled with the same joy, excitement, and promise of adventure." Now that sounds pretty wholesome at first, right? I mean, on the one hand, it's notable, like, wow, it's playable. They have a playable build. That's crazy, right? On the other hand, you're also like, they're already moving on from Starfield? Yeah, I'm sure they have a team working on the DLC and everything, but it just came out. I'm kind of surprised. I would have thought that they would have taken some more time, but whatever. This may be the very first time a Bethesda game has ever been in a playable state. Oh, man. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. I'll give them that. I'll give them that. Yeah, it is a... it is probably the first time. Yeah, it's... I hope it's awesome, but... I mean, you can see in the comment section... who are they kidding? Won't even be in a playable state when it releases. Man, I just hope Starfield isn't an indication of where Bethesda is taking the Elder Scrolls. They severely need new writers and the ability to focus on quality over quantity. Wait, really? Damn, even Starfield isn't that far in development. Okay, yeah, they need to engine. Overall, like, the problem for them is that it's going to be mighty hard to shake these negative perceptions. Because you guys remember I did the survey of the game, or of players, like, I wonder if I can pull up those. So I asked the community 3 months ago. So after the dust had settled, I asked everybody, after Starfield, are you more or less excited for the Elder Scrolls 6? And 61% of players said they're less excited. 33 said indifferent, didn't really change. Only 6% said they played Starfield and were more excited after playing Starfield, which it doesn't take a genius to figure out. Like, when you play a game from a studio, you should play it and be like, wow, I can't wait to see what they do next. And that's where most people are with, like, you play Red Dead 2 and you're like, oh my God, can you imagine what GTA 6 is going to be like? Or you go and play, like, I don't know, Cyberpunk 2077 2.0, like with Phantom Liberty and everything. And you're like, okay, it started rough, but with what this is now, I can only imagine what The Witcher 4 is going to be like. You know, you get really, really excited after you play the thing and you know the next thing's going to be better. With this, it's like, this is the opposite of what you want. This is not what you want to see. Players that play Starfield, or at least have been exposed to Starfield, because we can't verify every one of the 72,000 have played it, but players exposed to it, at the very least, only 6% are more excited. And somebody asked, didn't you do this poll already? I did, because I wanted to test to see if it changed. So the original poll, where's the survey portion? There's a poll there, and then when I go to this one now, it's also not giving me the poll, which is the one we were just looking at. Did YouTube just like glitch out on me? This is weird. On the original poll that said they were more excited. And as time went by, after months and months of exposure to it, playing more of the game, they grew less excited the more they played Starfield and the longer it sat with them. And it was also around 70,000 votes. So at the very least, the consensus seems to be among the average gamer that voted on that survey, over 70,000 people. The consensus is that the more they were exposed to Starfield, the less excited they were for the next game. And overwhelmingly, people are less excited for the sequel than they are indifferent or more excited. And that's a big problem for Bethesda. And most of the frustrations people have can be boiled down to like frustrations with the technology, issues with like the engine, things like that. I don't know. I am hopeful, but time will tell. I think if they stick with the creation engine, even if they do a lot of work on it, it's going to be a big old uphill battle to overcome these negative perceptions. Why is there such a hard push for graphical enhancement when people literally just want a good story mechanics? I mean, I think most of it is just that right now people feel very underwhelmed with the current performance and graphical fidelity levels of most major releases, and so people are like, we want better. We're paying $500 for a new console, and it feels like we're still playing PS4 and PS3 games like we saw with Rise of the Ronin. So it's like, can we crank the knobs a little bit? Can we make things that really look next generation and feel and play next generation? And so it's all a balancing act. I mean, some studios are leaning heavily into that fidelity. Others are trying to lean more into core mechanics. Some are not achieving high fidelity or solid performance and mechanics. And in that case, you're like, how did this even happen? So there's always going to be a push for higher fidelity stuff also, because it makes the game easier to sell when you have high fidelity footage that you can showcase to people. And they're like, oh my God, it looks so good. It looks really good. You know, that goes a long way. CDPR has an amazing engine and still chose to move to Unreal Engine 5. Don't know how Bethesda can stick with the creation engine when it's so flawed. I agree. I mean, that's a great way of putting it. Is it's like CDPR is choosing to move to Unreal Engine, and their Red engine was so powerful it made one of the most graphically impressive games of all time in the form of Cyberpunk, especially with the Phantom Liberty update with 2.0 and 2.1 and everything. So if they chose to move to Unreal, how does Bethesda get away with it? Like, how does Bethesda think that their tool is more viable than Unreal? And really, as far as I can tell, in every interview I've ever seen of Todd Howard, it comes back to they know the tool, the modding community knows the tool, the creation engine is what I mean. And beyond that, they're able to work very quickly with the creation engine. But I think, as we've seen, speed doesn't mean anything if the quality drops significantly and is way below the competition. And this is the thing, like, you've seen those showcases and tech demos of the Unreal Engine 5.4 and everything. You've seen the clips of that new Captain America game. Like, that's the level of fidelity that the Unreal Engine is going to start really pushing. And if Bethesda is still running the creation engine and, like, the Elder Scrolls 6 is an incremental upgrade over Starfield, I just think it's going to get crucified. Like, it's not even going to be slightly competitive. Because bear in mind, we also have not seen a lot of big open world adventure games on the AAA scale this generation that have been built exclusively for modern hardware. Even some of the biggest games that have released so far on the PS5 and Xbox have been like cross-compatible, backwards compatible. Like even God of War Ragnarok was also playable on the PS4, was it not? So like, I think once we start seeing those games in the coming years, it's gonna blow your mind. Like, I think it's gonna blow your mind. Yeah, just imagine once GTA 6 comes out, all anybody's gonna be talking about is like, this game doesn't look as good as that game. Like even after Red Dead 2 came out, everybody was like, it's not as good. It's not as good as that. So, game sucks.
He took my thing. Red flag, red flag.
16 times the detail.
Okay, nice. I'll just take the horse. The jumping across rooftops, gliding is not that fun. Ooh, man, what a tricky bitch. Fuck. Why are all the gates closed? I don't get it. Nice. The lady killer. Oh shit. See if I can assassinate them. It's two of them. Mmm. Mmm. He's good. He was bigger than I thought. Sitting down looking all small. Looking short. Hey. Oh, I didn't get the shrine. Okay. Where's the photographic studio? Sir Tittywinkle. What's poppin'? The same exact, literally the same exact fucking dialogue. What's the point? Just let me click once and let him tell me. How do I know what's like my main story missions? Whatever, bro. I don't know. Let me go get that shrine. Oh my god, no. Oh god, the dojo. Fuck. Alright. Let's do it. Fuck you. You're gonna rob me. Holy shit, I got a bunch of skill points. I'll be the victor. Damn, she had fucking unlimited poise till the end. What the fuck? How many times you gotta parry this bitch? She was pretty easy. You wanna fight me now? Bro, he is relentless with those combos. Let's go, pussy. Hmm. Fucking pussy. Suck my dick. Another new bond. Wow. So many friends. Collect cats with sauna. Alright, let's get some pussy. Looking for cats, shut up. Upstairs. Where the fuck do I get upstairs? Oh, this goddamn place is a fucking labyrinth. That's so depressing. Shut up. What the fuck? Great. Shut up. Hope to find your pussy and kill the thugs. I got you. What? Alright, I got some new fighting styles with the katana. I have Master in Hayabusa Ryu. Oh shit. How'd you get that? Okay. Skill issue. How the fuck? Are you serious? Good. That was good. I did it twice, two of you. go. Jesus, old man. Ooh, I got a legendary wooden sword and wooden katana. Fucking nice. Holy shit. I didn't know I can upgrade it. Maybe I could do more damage at the dojo. Alright, let's get a better great sword, if there is one. No, that's it. It's the best. Katana. This one's 254. I can get that counter spark and a little blood gauge. Excuse me. What you doing on the bridge? You got that. Big Dan King, what are you doing here again? I don't need any more fucking silver coins. I don't know what I'm gonna spend them on. The fuck, they want me to swim all the way out there? For some fucking skill points? Ain't no goddamn way. Alright. Well, they want me to dive and use the hooks. Let's look for the hooks. What the fuck? How do I... Whatever, man, whatever. What the fuck, man? Oh shit. Minus 8,000 karma. What the fuck? No, I'm getting my shit back. Oh, I can charge it. That is so cool. I didn't know that. Oh, that is so fucking good. What the fuck? It's a fucking cat. You real jumpy. Let me just pick you up while you're sleeping. Cats love that. I didn't need a cutscene for that. Thanks. Thanks, though. Yeah, I already got Max Bond with you. Get the fuck out of here. There you are, fucking depresso over here. Damn, I got mad shit from that. It's a drunkard. See ya. No, we don't. Oh, I fucked her? Oh, fucked her. I saw a quick frame. Over the clothes, though. It was a dry hump. Yeah, we crossed more than paths. Whew. One. That's what I want to see. Oh. 25, level 24. Nice. Level up to 25. Oh, she's dead. That's right. All photographs, all bonds. These are fucking excellent. Holy shit. I'll get that for the armor. Fuck it. Nah, the blade flash is too good. I hardly use it though. Still good to have it. Ooh, man. These are all chapter shit, right? So save a bunch of people lives. It's gonna have to replay for shit. That's a replay. This is just grind out with the rest and just save up money.